Welcome, everyone. Jai Ma. We're beginning our Tuesday sessions for the month of January. I know that many of you started the year with the Navodaya Satsanga, and I know I've heard shares in the community forum and received messages from many that it was just such an illumined way to start the year. And so this month, we'll be taking these 4 Tuesdays of this month to keep that vibration of positivity, of light, of orientation to the divine, and looking at practical ways that we can invoke that, continue that throughout the month and throughout the year. And we'll be looking at mantras, chants, bhajans. Something special is coming in the beginning of February. It is Acharya Shunya's guru, Baba Ayodhyanath, who from the heart, we call him Baba. It's his 125th birth anniversary on February 4th. And so we will be celebrating that with a morning session and evening session with Acharya Shunya. So some of these chants that will be unfolding in this month, we will be chanting together, singing together at that event in February as well. And the hope is that these sacred sounds, these sacred chants, become a part of your own inner soundtrack, become a part of that resonance that is just happening organically for you. So let's begin. Today we have a deeply grounding and anchoring exercises and discussions, sharing to have today around altars and around chants we can have with our altar. So let's start first with our opening prayer, with our gratitude to our teacher's teacher, and all the way back in this deep wisdom lineage. So you're welcome to join me by chanting, by reading along, by simply listening. You can join me on an inhalation. Om Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Om Shanti Prakashaya Namaha. Om Ayodhyanathaya Namaha. Om Shunyacharya Namaha. Om Atmatattvam Namaha. Om Vidyatattvam Namaha. Om Suryaya Namaha. Hari Om Tat Sat. Okay. So as we begin our journey today, Acharya Shunya, right now that she's traveling in India, and she's returning home to be with family, to do her duties there. And we as a community are taking this time to ground into the practices that allow us to have an independent journey. At the end of the day, we are all essentially responsible for our own growth, for our own steps forward. And so to do that, we can be empowered with skills, we can be empowered with tools, we can have exposure to wisdom. But there's a personal initiative that each of us have to take with how we are showing up when no one is looking, when only ourself is observing. And so this practice today that we'll be exploring around creating an altar, what are the ways we can tend to an altar so that it not only is an external object, a decorative area of our home, but it becomes a deep, direct portal from our own self to the ultimate universal, divine oneness. I'll be sharing today from some of Acharya Shunya's unpublished writings that are forming themselves into a book. So there's some beautiful words that she shares to describe what is an altar and where it comes from. And many of you may have already very elaborate altar practices and a deep and dedicated relationship with a physical space that really enriches your personal practice, your spiritual journey. And many of you, the idea of an altar is kind of foreign, or you're not sure how to step toward it. So wherever you are on that spectrum of relationship with altar, these insights coming from Acharya Shunya will help us refine the relationship we're having with those physical objects so that they help us move towards transcendence of the physical world around us and a deep um, knowingness of truth. So Acharya Shunya writes, she says that setting up an altar and engaging in puja, which is the act of worship in that space, is not just about maintaining tradition, it's about rekindling a relationship with the divine. And that the altar becomes a bridge between the seen and the unseen, the finite and the infinite. And in the act of creating one, in the act of creating an altar, we invite the divine into our lives and acknowledge its constant presence. It's more than a physical space. An altar is a living, breathing extension of our spiritual journey. It reflects our intention to seek the infinite amidst the finite. I find that very soothing and encouraging to know that in this world of finite and limitation and physical heaviness that we experience all around us in the day-to-day, that there is a way, there is a tool for us to create a bridge between that. So today, what we're going to do is we're going to walk through some simple steps about establishing an altar. We're going to talk about what that altar space becomes as more than a sum of its physical parts. We're going to look at how an altar can be integrated into your daily life, into your personal spiritual connection. And finally, together, we will chant the Gayatri Mantra as something that is an auspicious offering we can bring to our altar. Again, whether you already have an extensive altar at home or don't know where to begin, or maybe you have an eclectic corner of symbols and meaningful objects and nature items, our discussion today is going to allow us to examine that relationship that we're having with that space. And hopefully, I'm quite sure, inspired by these teachings from Acharya Shunya, there'll be at least one area where you can further refine or make a very, very simple start to having your own sacred space. All right, let me just begin with an outline of these steps that she's given us also for establishing an altar. First off, we have to choose a stable base. I'm sitting here in a kind of different location in my home because I wanted to be able to keep this altar behind me visible for you. And you'll notice each of the pieces that I described, they're present here as well. So we have a stable base. You can use a table, a shelf, kind of any flat surface that can be your foundation for your altar. And we prepare that space, prepare that emptiness. So that means we clean it. We can cover it with a cloth. Here I've put a cloth, which is used only for an altar. I don't dust with this cloth. I don't make a bed with this cloth. I use it only for this. This piece, the cloth, is known as an asana. It's an asan. So it's a seat. So that word may be familiar to you from yogic practices. So we create a seat. It's like we're inviting the divine home. We give them a cushion to sit on comfortably. And that cloth is the seat for the divine, and it symbolizes purity and cleanliness, but also preparation. Ah, God, you're coming. Great. I've kept a space for you. There's room for you here. Secondly, we arrange sacred elements. So there's a few sacred items and objects that evoke the divine from within us. And these include things like a flame, a lamp, and we keep a flame, whether it's a candle or an oil lamp or something, a clay diya, anything that is the element of fire in it. We keep a bell, And as we're going through all these steps, remember these are not prescriptions, these are just to give you some inspiration. So if you don't have a bell at home, please don't uh, worry. But we keep a bell. And this may be familiar to you. This is just like a small bell. And at the start and the end of a puja, we can ring it. And when you ring this bell, that I'll ring it. I don't know if it'll come on the Zoom, but it just kind of brightens and wakes up the emptiness. It just resonates for us inside of that space that we're in. So that sound purifies and says, okay, I'm here. I'm about to communicate with the divine in me and the divine everywhere. It's said to echo, its resonance is said to echo that Om sound. So it's just giving that vibration to the universe of Om through that tinkling of the bell. I live in India, and a lot of times in the morning around, 5 to 8 a.m., I'll be hearing from other houses that ting 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 ting. So I know that the people in the other homes are waking up and doing their morning puja. So it echoes, you hear it from other places as well. Then we'll keep something on our altar like flowers or leaves. We can use fresh flowers like jasmine or lotus or marigold flowers or anything that these flowers, they're so temporal. They arise, they gift us their fragrance and beauty, and then they fall back to the earth. So they symbolize this impermanence and a surrender. We can use sacred leaves like tulsi. These are also offerings that symbolize purity, grace. Wherever you are, whatever wildflowers you have, whatever's growing up through cracks of your pavement, wherever you can find, you're welcome to incorporate those as well. Then we'll burn incense. This brings in engages the sense of smell. It represents transformation. As that smoke rises from the altar, it carries our prayers. It's a bridge again between the earthly, burning away the earthly and ascending to the divine. So as you watch the smoke of the incense rise, you can have these kind of thoughts. Actually, I'll light my incense now. I kept it but haven't lit it. So you see it coiling, dancing, and rising. Next on the altar, we'll keep some sacred water, some water element. And this water can be used for purification. It symbolizes the washing away of impurities, the flowing away of what is no longer needed, of what we're holding on to but needn't anymore. You could keep a tumbler of water that has a drop of rose oil in it, or a drop of sandalwood powder or essence, anything that, again, for you brings in a sense of purity, washing away impurities. So I've kept some in this copper kalash here. And this water can then later, at the end of the day, we keep that water fresh. We don't want to keep the same water for a whole week. So each day, you can offer that water to a plant outside. Maybe in the morning, you can offer it and then refill it and keep it on the altar. And then we keep some simple food offerings. If the divine is coming into our home as a guest, we'll give them something to eat, right? We give something as an offering to the divine, something simple. It can be fruit, just a whole fruit. It can be some nuts or some sweets. It's a way of expressing gratitude. And after you do a puja, or after you kind of spend time in reflection at your altar, the understanding is that those foods then become blessed. Those foods become a gift back. They can be shared, you can give them to others. You can consume them yourself. So I have here a small mm, cup of, kept it here. And in here I have a small cup of almond, just few almonds, few raisins, and then I'll just keep it here. I'll keep it for the day, and in the afternoon maybe I'll have some. So one interesting thing about all these objects is that you can see in them that they draw in all the five elements. We call them the Pancha Mahabhutas. So there's earth, there's the stability, the firmness, the unshakability of the earth. There's also the space. We've created that space. We've rung that bell. We've expanded that area. There's the air. There's movement as the incense rises through the air. There's an air movement quality. There's fire, certainly, with the flame. And then we have water in the form of the that kalash or the pot or the tumbler. So everything is there. So in this corner, we've collected items that bring reverence and recognition of all the elements of all the universe. So the theme here is always we're finding representatives of the all, and we're drawing them in and saying, let me gaze at them in this sacred space. So after we've collected all these objects, we place a symbol at the center. We center the divine. This can be anything that resonates with your heart. So it could be an image, a photo, a statue, any representation of a deity from whatever culture or tradition you resonate with. It can be a sacred geometry symbol. It can be any meaningful natural object, like a stone or a rock or a crystal or a feather. It can be anything, but something that to you, when you see it, reminds you of the divine. Something that deeply resonates with you and your spiritual journey and feels like when you gaze at that thing, that conduit to Ishvara, that conduit to the all is there. So I have present here they aren't usually in this room. I brought everybody down here on a field trip to join us today in our Zoom session, but I have a little mini Ganesha and two devis, a Saraswati and a Lakshmi, and they're just so small, and I'll tell you more about them later, but they're here. So when I look at them, I see Ganesha, it awakens in me, clearing away of hurdles and obstacles, stepping through new doorways. For me, that's the meaning that that image has for me. When I see Saraswati, I just see her and I remember wisdom. Wisdom is my nature, truth is my nature, purity. It evokes from within knowledge, qualities. So you choose what gives that reminder to you. And then fourth step here is we set an intention for this altar space. Before you begin to use it and engage with it and act with it, take a moment of quiet reflection. And this can also be done when you have an established altar, but you want to reactivate it. You want to bring in fresh energy. So you can again set a new intention. You articulate your purpose with this intention. It can be clear, like with this altar, I hope to honor the light of Ishvara all around me. Or with this altar, I'm cleansing and clarifying, I'm sanctifying this entire space. With this altar, I'm deepening my relationship with the divine, whatever it is for you. So find a statement of what this altar is representing for you at that time. And the fifth component of setting up an altar here is to engage with it regularly. It's not a one and done. We approach our altar daily or as often as possible to maintain and deepen that connection. So you can use that space for meditation, for prayer, for reflection, for journaling, for contemplation. We allow the arrangement of these items, the intentional arrangement of these items, to bring balance and peace to our practice. You could, again, touch in with that altar regularly by refilling the oil in the lamp or adding another flower or simply touching the shelf and feeling blessed. Sometimes I have this altar in another space where I do my practice, my sadhana. I also do my swadhyay, my study in that area, writing in that space. So sometimes I just walk by it and I touch the platform that it sits on upstairs and I bring it to my heart and I just remember. So it's just a touching in, a touching in. This quality of sattva, of clarity, of purity, it arises in us as we tend to this altar. So ideally, we wake up in the morning. The altar says, please wake up in the morning and tend to me first. We wake up in the morning, we freshen ourselves up, and we approach the altar. So this quality of sattva emerges in our mind, in our bodies. And the most important part of puja, which Acharya Shunya has said is, yes, I've just now listed many, many steps. You should keep a bell, and then there should be a cloth, and you keep some nuts. And these are all recommendations that come from a person and a tradition that has said, hey, you know what? When you do these things, something awakens within. So give it a try. Try it. Um, so all of those are recommendations for you to play with and experiment with and see what your experience is with it. But the most important part of puja, Acharya Shunya says, is tending to the altar tells a part of your mind that you mean business. And I love that idea of tending to an altar tells part of your mind, I mean business when it comes to my spiritual journey. This is not a wavering uh, fancy that's fleeting and coming and going. I'm bringing a discipline into my journey. An altar and a puja has this balancing effect. So for those of us who are wavering or feeling laziness or procrastinating or letting ourselves get distracted and deprioritizing uh, our our spiritual journey, despite that inner yearning we feel, the commitment to taking care of a puja, taking care of a altar space, pulls us up into a disciplined area. We mean business, tells part of our mind. And then there are also those seekers who are quite rigid. They push hard. They meditate 15 minutes today, they want to do 20 tomorrow. They read 5 pages today, they want to read 15 tomorrow. The practice can become intellectual and less heart-based. And so again, for these spectrum of seekers who have become perhaps rigid and dry, intellectualized, uh, harsh on themselves in their spiritual journey, creating an altar and engaging with it regularly brings a softness, brings a heart-centeredness. So this puja and altar has a balancing effect on any one of us, no matter what kind of phase we find ourselves in at the moment. The discipline of a heart-centered engagement with the divine. Yeah. And there's one key value that definitely has to be highlighted in this discussion of an altar. And that is the value of cleanliness, shaucham, shaucham. The altar evokes from us this value. So the idea is, since you've made a home for Ishvara, in your space. You'll approach it as if you're meeting God, as if you're meeting the divine. So let's imagine someone shows up tomorrow morning and says, "Hi, good morning, wake up. I'm going to take you right now. We have an appointment and I'm going to introduce you to the divine right now." How will you show up? Your body, you would bathe. You'd comb your hair. You would bathe. We put on fresh clothes. We're not going to show up rumpled in yesterday's sweatshirt that hasn't been washed for a week. We're going to put on fresh, clean clothes. They can be simple. They don't have to be fancy, but they should be clean. We keep the altar clean. Where we're meeting the divine, that should be dusted regularly. Old things should be removed. The ash from the incense should be wiped off. Any spilled oil should be removed. Old flowers put back into the earth. We keep it clean, very clean. So that way, there's at least one corner of our home that is fastidiously clean. There could be chaos, there could be dishes in the sink. Yes, we're going to work on bringing sattva, clarity, purity, shaucham to all of our life. But at least we're starting with this one corner. And we keep this altar in a place that can be kept clean also. So we keep it in a way that there won't be backpacks falling on it when children come home from school. There won't be the mail or the keys thrown on that surface. We keep it in a place that we can keep pure and clean. And we consecrate it daily. We keep a regular engagement with it. We bring a Shakti to it. We bring an energy to it. We prepare ourselves mentally and emotionally when we're coming to that altar. We bring intention and mindfulness, which is also a kind of shaucham, a kind of cleanliness, a purity of intention. So we can, of course, bring our emotions to the feet of our altar if we're feeling a deep sadness, or we're feeling an anger or a confusion. Sitting in front of our altar is a perfectly beautiful place to simply collapse into the lap of the divine. But we know what we're doing when we go there. So when we go to tend to our altar, mentally and emotionally bringing shaucham, purity, cleanliness, we don't come there when we're feeling angry and then we're dunk, 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 dunk. Let me quickly wipe this off and let me straighten this out. We're coming with a pure intention and emotion. We maintain a divine presence. We know why we're there, to commune with the divine. We also clothe ourselves in respectful ways. So that means like being presentable when we come to the altar. No one else may be there. We may be the only one home. We may be the only one in the room. But just like when you go into a church or a temple or an ashram or a sacred place, which is trying to quiet our body awareness, bring us into an inward state, we would be coming and approaching that with that same outer reverence. The objects that we use on the altar, those are also kept very clean and pure and set aside. So for instance, this kalash, I don't use it to mix buttermilk in the kitchen. If I use a spoon for the altar, if I want to put ghee into a ghee lamp, I won't also use that spoon to mix my tea. You know, like we keep each object for this. And in that way, these things keep on acquiring a purity, a cleanliness, a higher vibration. So we keep saying we want on the spiritual journey that we want a direct experience with God. We want an encounter with the divine. And the altar is saying, wonderful, make a space for it, make a place for it, set the table. And we have at least one moment every day where our whole being is ready for it. Our whole being is ready. We are clean, we are prepared, we are at ease, we come into that space. So that's why this value of Shaucham, not from a dogmatic space of don't mix all the things and it all has to be sacred, sacred. It's not in a dogmatic way. It's in a way that says If you focus on bringing purity here, because all is one, Ishvara, we are pretending playing house like Ishvara is living here on this table, but Ishvara is in you also. So that value of purity, that value of clean emotions arises within. And that's one effect that tending to the altar can have. And finally, when we are looking at objects and how we approach an altar, often people feel moved to include an image of their guru or their teacher. I have one here. This is my photo of Baba. He's also come on the field trip downstairs to this room. And we keep that image there, yes, because we feel a connection with that teacher. We feel wanting to show gratitude and tribute to that teacher. Even more than that, keeping an image of a teacher or a guru, whoever that may be, on the altar, we're worshiping not that personality, not that human being that took birth, but it's a representation of an unbroken chain of wisdom that has flowed through some lineage, through some parampara, which is the word for lineage. So by honoring this one guru, whose image we may be keeping, we're honoring all teachers who came before. We're forming a bridge. Again, this bridge comes, this bridge between ourselves and an unbroken chain of wisdom teachings. So again, we find a bridge. When you pray in front of, or you bow in front of, or you set an intention to connect with a guru at your altar, you're again not worshiping that physical form, but you are worshiping the divine light that they have awakened inside of you. The guru's role is to guide you to the realization, to the ultimate seeing of the guru, the light bringer, the darkness dispeller that is within each of us, in our own heart. So there's this word, the guru tattva, the essence, the essence, the just pure quality. So we are putting an image of a guru, of a teacher, who is representing the universal energy of guru, of a person, of a teacher, of a guide who gives us that wisdom that awakens us up to our own deepest self. So this is one way of connecting with an image of a teacher as reverence for that one individual, but connecting it to the universal. Everything in the altar is not just that, it also is that, meaning that, the ultimate. So continue to find the bridge between this physical representation and that ultimate principle. This is the sort of portal that opens up for us. And again, from Acharya Shunya's writings, she says, in this carefully crafted space where the tangible meets the abstract and the finite converges with the infinite, find the tranquility and clarity that comes from knowing you are intimately connected with the cosmos. Here, your spiritual practice becomes a tangible expression of your inner journey, making the divine both accessible and profoundly impactful. So she says that your altar, once created, it becomes a sanctuary, not just a physical one, but a spiritual refuge. And you've created a home for Ishvara in your home. I'll pause here and I'm going to share a little about my own journey with an altar. I didn't grow up with that tradition. I'll share a little about that, but I want to pause here and give you a moment to check in with what arises for you in this discussion of an altar. What emotions come up? What thoughts come up? What questions come up? How are you feeling about your current relationship with an altar you may already have? How are you feeling about new shifts and changes you might like to make? How are you feeling about perhaps entertaining this practice in your own home? So just take a moment to check in. Yeah. So I'll share about my journey with the altar. It was not a tradition that I grew up in. So I didn't have much experience observing or practicing with an altar. And I was 25 years old when I met my guru, when I met Acharya Shunya, and I began studying with her Ayurveda and Vedanta. And I took up very early on in the first, few weeks of meeting her, her teaching said, start an altar. And she said, here is how it's helped me. Here it's benefited the tradition, not just me, but many, many people in the past. So give it a try. Give it an earnest try and discover what happens for you. See what happens for you. And I wanted to. I felt an inner calling. So I set up a lamp. I set up some sacred forms. That's who you see here. This my Devis and my Ganesha. These are from my in college. Somehow I had picked them up somewhere, I don't know, and I had kept them carefully. Didn't know what to do with them, and so I said, "Beautiful. Now I can use them." Set up some sacred forms, a lamp, uh, lit some incense, and I was sitting regularly in this space. And within weeks of sitting with this altar, um, the the long-term relationship that I had been in, that I knew deep within wasn't right, that I knew wasn't the right fit for me, that relationship just dissolved. And that showed me my first lesson with the altar was when you create a space of light, it dispels illusion and ignorance. So as I sat with that altar, so many inner truths, knowings, convictions, intuitions that I knew uh, couldn't be covered up anymore. It was brought to light. And that was the beginning of 10 months of incredible, utter, outer instability. I moved out of the apartment I was staying in and essentially became a nomad. For those 10 months, I never slept in the same place for more than 3 nights at a time. I would sleep at a friend's house. I would stay with family. I would house sit over here. I would travel this way. I was just moving, 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 never coming back to places, but never more than 3 nights consecutively in one place. I didn't have a car. So I rode my bike. I took the train. I took the bus for more than 3 hours every day. I was just moving, moving, moving. I quit my job because it was, again, not aligned with the life I was stepping into. And so I was working a lot of odd jobs. Again, instability. Things were coming to me when I needed them, but here, there, this small gig over here, this job over there, irregular hours, irregular locations, just all over the place. My parents, my parents separated amicably in a very kind of loving way. My childhood home was sold. So again, instability. As amicable and peaceful as everything was, again, a breaking apart, a moving apart, a losing, a loss of a relationship of a certain way that was giving me strength, a physical home that always felt like a landing place. Again, lost. I was financially broke. I had no money. But I did have a gift from an aunt of some money she had planned to give me apparently that covered my tuition for the first year. So I was okay. In this soup, I'm not telling you this wild story just to say, I don't know, for no reason. The reason I'm telling this story is that clearly I had every valid reason to not keep an altar. Where was I going to keep it? I mean, really, where was I going to put it? So I had every valid reason not to begin this practice. But I did. I created this traveling altar. I had a photo, this photo of Baba. I had a little mini Ganesha and my Devis, these Devis, and this Ganesha. I had my mala that I had received for my practice. I had a kalash, this kalash. I had a cloth. I had a lamp or a candle. Maybe I was using tea lights because I was very mobile. I had incense, matches, and I gathered all this up. Every place I went and every place I landed, I unfolded it. I had no outer home to speak of, but I had a spiritual home. Whenever I arrived at a new place I was staying with friends or family or house sitting or something, I would find the corner where I could unfold my altar. This time of outer upheaval really cemented for me in an indelible way the benefit of having an altar. It was the place I landed and surrendered each day. It created a space of reverence in homes that were other people's homes, but no matter what rajas and tamas, no matter what overactivity or heaviness, laziness, negativity, dirtiness would be outside, I had one corner that was full of sattva. It was something to hold on to. It was my bridge, my physical bridge uh, to hold on to while the rest of the external world was crumbling. I had this external, tangible representation of the constancy of Satyam, truth, Brahman, the one universal consciousness. So from that time, I've always kept some altar. Now my altar is quite simple. But this experience was meaningful for me in so many of those ways. And so integrating an altar into your daily life, it's more than just a sacred corner. It can become a steady companion to the rhythm of your days. It offers moments of pause and reflection and connection. It invites you to step away from the rush of life into the stillness of the present moment. And most importantly, also, there's no rigid rules and expectations. It's just simply this gentle call to return to your altar whenever you need grounding, inspiration, peace. Importantly, the altar is not a space for performance, for doing, even though I've recommended many things you can do at your altar. It's not a place for performance, it's a place for presence. So any visit you have to your altar, even if it's brief, it invites you to slow down, to remember that connection to Ishvara, reconnect to the divine within yourself. It helps you align to your deepest self again and again. We're giving a lot of significance to things made of those five elements, to made of stone, made of clay, made of metal, made of, anything. But the degree to which you bring reverence to those physical objects, to that degree, you experience this direct relationship with the divine. And also, once you establish an altar, you feel a healthy kind of guilt when you just let it be, when you let it kind of fall out of care. I don't know if any of you have had this experience when you have established an altar. There's an inner, oh, I have to make sure I take care, a healthy kind of guilt. If you don't show up, you start becoming more mindful. You have this inner desire to, that guilt is a reflection of that inner desire you have to connect with the divine. So like you have a yoga mat that every time you see it, you think, I need to go do my yoga. This is like your bhakti mat. This is like your worship mat. So every time you see that altar, you think, ah, I need to remember my divine presence. I need to come back to the self. Come back, come back. Every time you go there, it burns away rajas and tamas, increases that sattva. It becomes a reminder of what samsara wants us to forget, of what this whole setup not wants us to forget, but what the setup inevitably makes us forgetful of, which is our deepest nature. So it reminds us again and again. And of course, as you go, you bring a lot of personalization and your intuition to the process. So you place what resonates with you, personalize it, infuse it with your intention and connection. Can symbolize, it can include symbols that symbolize whatever resonates with you. Use your intuition to guide you. It becomes more than just a physical arrangement of objects, but a organic, intuitive expression of the exact unique reminders that you need placed in front of you to bring you back to that self-awareness. It's this bridge to Ishvara. So we keep only objects there that are carrying us in that direction. Yeah. And anything you place on the altar, there's a process, a ritualized process for consecrating that. But anything you place on the altar, simply wipe it off, make it clean, bring it to your heart, and then place it. So like that. Very, very organic, very natural, very intuitive. And lastly, once we're at the altar, what do? We can meditate, we can journal, we can reflect, we can pray. But one thing that we do is we chant. These can be sacred songs from your tradition, but the most sacred mantra that we use inside of Acharya Shunya's lineage and is used widely in many, many lineages and in many homes and um, sacred places. This is a very well-known mantra for its potency and directness. This is the Gayatri Mantra, and this mantra has also been a constant companion since the beginning of my tumultuous start on my Vedic path. This Gayatri Mantra has also been a very resolute companion every step of the way. So I'll invite you to sit with this mantra. If you have been at the Navodaya, the New Year retreat, you got to experience the divination process that Acharya Shunya did. So we heard insights into each word of this mantra. And if you haven't, it's available. You can view it. We also Acharya Shunya will be doing a deep dive into this mantra in a few months, in the month of March. So you're welcome to join her there for that. But for today, we're just doing a very simple connection with it. This mantra may have been something you've experienced from childhood, or it may be very new for you. But I'll share a slide now with the words, and thank you. Maria has shared it in the chat as well. So wherever is easier for you to view, you're welcome to see it there. Right. Okay. So this is the mantra. It's written here in Devanagari. It's written here transliterated, so you can sound it out with the diacritical marks to give you the sense of the pronunciation, and a very simple translation. So what this mantra is saying is, here's one verse of translating it, but Acharya Shunya will unfold many, many layers of this. But we're saying we meditate upon that supreme reality, the source of physical, mental, spiritual worlds. And we ask that may the divine, worthy of adoration, guide our intellects and illuminate our understanding. When I read this reading of the mantra, I feel the request here is both an acknowledgement and an ask. It's orienting our body, our mind, our intellect, our heart towards the deepest source of all possible sources. And we're asking that that divine that we awaken to that divine's presence inside of us. That it's amongst all the things in the world, that divine reality, that supreme reality is worthy of our reverence, is worthy to be adored. And we're asking, let me navigate this whole world. Let me move ahead. Let me see a deeper truth, following not what the fad says, not what anyone around me says, not let me be guided by that deep inner compass, that deep inner truth. Let me be illuminated from there. I'll read each line and then give time for you to say those words where you are. And as you say those sounds, you're making that sound with your voice, with your lungs, with your breath, with your air. And let the echo of that come into your being and just feel it. You don't have to worry too much about what each word means. There'll be time for all of those explanations. But just allow each line to emerge from deep within, echo through your hearing, and reverberate. And this is how we gain a connection with a mantra, slowly, slowly. So the first line is saying, Om Bhu Bhuva Swaha. Now you chant. Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodaya. Let's chant it again. Om Bhur Bhuva Swaha Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodaya. And the third time. Om Bhur Bhuva Swaha Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodaya. Yeah, beautiful. Let's chant it again, this time together, 3 more times. And as you chant, imagine this mantra coming not from your mind, not from the throat, not from the lungs, but before it even becomes part of your respiratory system, your vocal system. Imagine the vibration starting deep in your belly, deep in your core. So that om, when you say that om, it's coming and the sound is just an expression of a vibration that exists within you. So we'll chant it together 3 times, and we can chant it together. When you're sitting, you can sit comfortably. You can hold your hands any way that feels right. Just open palms on the lap. You can hold your hands in a mudra, like keeping your pointer finger and thumb touching with the other fingers extended. Anything you'd like. Maybe palms resting one on top of the other. You can keep a hand on the heart or the belly. Be at ease. So we'll chant this again together 3 times, joining each other on an inhalation. Om Bhuvah Swaha Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodaya. Om Bhuvah Swaha Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodaya. Om Bhuvah Swaha Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodaya. And these last 3 times that we'll chant it together, allow that sound, that reverberation to be coming from within, and gently bring your inner gaze to that third eye area, to the Ajna chakra, between the eyebrows and the forehead area. Softly, gently. And as you chant this, bring either an awareness of a light, of a flame, of the rising sun, or you can choose to put an image in your mind of a form of the divine, or anything that represents what we're praying to, that source of physical, mental, and spiritual origin, that supreme divine reality, that which is worthy, truly worthy of our love and adoration. And the symbol that we want to guide our intellect, illuminate our understanding. So with a relaxed body, gentle attention brought to the Ajna chakra between the eyebrows, with an intention of connecting with a supreme reality that can illuminate us from within. We allow the Gayatri Mantra again to emerge from the deepest depths of our being as we chant in community. Let's meet on an inhalation. Om Bhuvah Swaha Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodaya. Bhuvah Swaha Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodaya. Om Bhuvah Swaha Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So imagining yourself seated in front of your cleaned, pure corner of your home, sacred and intentionally placed objects and light, and this offering from deep in your being of this chant arising, bridging, meeting, connecting with that divine reality. And knowing we have the opportunity to do this every day, multiple times a day, we just need to set the space for it. We just need to create that place. And it can be organic, it can be simple, it can be heartfelt, and unique to you and what resonates with you. So I hope that today you feel inspired to begin. You feel invigorated in the process you have. Maybe you feel like there are threads of new inquiry you want to have around your own altar or puja practice. I hope you enjoy coming back to the Gayatri Mantra. Whether it's through Acharya Shunya's past recordings, this recording will become available. There'll be many opportunities to keep revisiting. So with that, we'll close today. Let us chant one more chant that we close each time. The Asatoma prayer. Again, orienting ourselves to the light and to truth. So our closing prayer. Join again on an inhalation. Om Asatoma Satkamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om peace, peace, peace. Please bring your reflections and your questions and your explorations about your altar to our community forum space. Bring photos of what sacred objects you're collecting, and let's just enjoy bringing Shakti to each other's explorations with their altars. So, Jai Ma, take care. We'll continue and meet again soon.